We are live, so welcome to this live stream here in the Make More Placements community. We're going to be talking about marketing. Going to get started. Well, first of all, sorry for being a couple of minutes late. We had a few technical problems getting on. We're going to sort of jump into it in about 30 seconds time. It's going to allow a few people to join, those that wanted to join live. But we're going to be talking about marketing. Specifically, we're going to be walking you through 7 steps to building an unbreakable client attraction machine so you can dominate your market. If you can see and hear as clearly and you're here live, give me let me know in the comment box by writing live so we know that you can hear us clearly. If you listen to the recording, just type replay in the comment box as well so we know that you can see and hear us clearly. So again,
folks.
We're going to be talking about 7 steps to building an unbreakable client attraction machine so you can dominate your market. If you can hear and see us clearly, give us let us know by either giving us a like or writing live in the comment box so we know that it's working properly. And we'll get started in just a few seconds. Give us a like or just type live in the comment box so we know it's working.
So hi Emmanuel, hi Conrad, hi Oliver, long time. Hope you're well, buddy. Hi Brian. Hi, Chris.
Can you see? Sorry, can you hear me okay? My internet
I can, yeah.
Dropping out. It's fine? Okay.
Awesome. Hear you.
All right, so let's jump in. So what we're going to be talking about, 7 steps to building an unbreakable client attraction machine so you can dominate your market. I think, with a lot of the recruitment and search business owners we speak to, one of the sort of the big problems, big challenges they have is on their client attraction side, and that sort of I guess manifests itself in one of 2 ways. So one is either they're unable to bring in the volume of clients that they need and want. So they might have a network of clients that they're working with. Maybe it's one main client. They want to grow, but they're unable to bring new clients, new clients into their business, new opportunities into the business. The other way it sort of manifests itself is that, they're able to get clients into the business, so the volume's there, but the quality is not. So they end up working with clients who, for want of a better word, they're easy to win, right? So you might win the business, but you've got, 2, 3, 4, maybe up to 10 of your competitors who also have won the same business. So you end up competing with multiple recruiters to fill the same vacancy. They're often you sort of playing you off against each other on your fees, so you have to reduce your fees, and ultimately your fill rates suffer. So you're working on 10 job orders just to fill 3 or 4 of them. So you think you'd add to that?
Yeah, not only that, but it's something we used to talk about as a former recruiter, is just what we call lousy clients. What I mean by that, clients who, quite frankly, if you had your own way, you wouldn't cross the road to actually talk to. They don't value you, they don't respect you, they mess you around, they don't return your calls, they don't give you feedback on resumes, stroke CVs. Quite frankly, they're just a pain in the butt. But the problem you have is you feel, I've got to work with this client, I've got to work with this hiring manager, even though they're a pain in the butt. And some of you may have seen there was a video in the group quite recently, a couple of days ago, talking to one of our clients. And one of the problems with that is when you get to that situation, you're working with clients that you don't actually enjoy working with. She said really well. She said you kind of fall out of love with recruitment because you don't look forward with that normal enthusiasm of going to work because you've got those few lousy clients, but you feel the belief is this is the best I can do. And we've got some news for you. That isn't the case. You don't have to put up with that kind of BS from lousy clients and low fees and clients that don't value or respect you. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Exactly what you can do to avoid that.
Awesome. So yeah, I guess what this, one of the reasons, if you sort of resonate with what we're saying here about the 2 sort of challenges that we see if you don't have a working client attraction system, one of the reasons that your marketing or your client attraction isn't working as well as you want it to is because recruitment nowadays, or I guess always has done, has a very low barrier to entry. And I think even over the last 12 months, probably more and more recruiters are entering the market. And when they come into the market, they're using the same strategies that you're using, right? So usually you're probably doing what you did in your old firm, what you did when you worked for, in your last job. You've probably taken a lot of those strategies, whether it's cold, whatever the strategy is, doesn't really matter. You've taken it into your new business, and it perhaps used to work well years ago, but what's happening is as more and more recruiters enter the market and essentially do the same thing, all those strategies that worked so well years ago become less and less effective because the market just quite frankly gets used to it. Your prospects become more sophisticated to the way things are done, so they ultimately what you're sending out, what you're putting out there ends up getting ignored, right? It's incredibly difficult to take cold calling, for example. It's incredibly difficult to stand out doing cold calling nowadays because one, it's harder to get through to the right person. Two, even when you do get through, they've probably been hit by multiple recruiters on, just in that one day alone. So how do you stand out with what you're saying, right? So like we said, either you won't win the business because you don't stand out, or you do win the business, but so have the other recruiters that have called, and you end up competing with them to fill the same vacancy. So, when we talk about client attraction, one of our big philosophies is that it's only really a client if one, they've either paid you a retainer up front, or two, ultimately that they're at the very least working with you exclusively, and they've made a commitment to pay. So I think without either of those two things, it's not really a client. You just end up working for free. Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, just go back to cost of entry or the low cost of entry for a recruiter, especially in this current climate. There are more and more recruiters that are being released, and these guys are thinking, well, I'm as well to go off and do it on my own. Think about it. What you need to set up to call yourself a recruiter. You simply call yourself a recruiter. You're on your kitchen dining table, perhaps, and all you need is a computer and the phone, and you're kind of good to go. And one of the challenges you've got is we talk to recruiters every day of the week. And one of the questions we often ask is, why would the hiring manager work with you rather than your competitors or do it themselves? And it's very rare that a recruiter can come up with a powerful, compelling reason why they've worked with you. Well, think about that for a minute. And you've got all these other recruiters entering the market, all frankly spouting the same nonsense, quite honestly, as to why they work with you. And from the hiring manager's point of view, as Drew rightly said, if the hiring manager, if you condition the hiring manager, hey, listen, no risk on your part, no commitment, just give us a job order, give me along with all the others, and I'll see what I can do. The consequence of that. Majority of the time, contingency recruiters are working, they're not going to fill the roles. Think about that for a minute. Think about that as a model. But if you could find a way of attracting clients who valued and respected you, if you could find a way of communicating why a client should work with you rather than any of your competitors do it themselves, just for a moment, just imagine what that would mean to you and to your business and to your lifestyle and what it would mean to your family. This is what this conversation is all about. And we care passionately about this and making things easier for you. And we're going to share with you exactly how you can do that.
There's two sort of ultimate goals with when you build a system like this. Number one is to generate lead flow that exceeds demand, right? So what we want is to get you in a position where you've got too many opportunities, too many prospects who want to work with you. So ultimately, you have to handpick the best clients to work with, and you get into a position where you're turning the wrong business away and only working with the very best clients. Secondly, we want to help you build authority in your marketplace. So I think, the more you can be seen as the go-to recruiter, the leader in your field, the easier winning business becomes, the easier your marketing and the more effective it is. So there's sort of two main goals for having a system like this. And we're going to sort of walk you through the 7 steps that you need to have in place. We can go into detail on each one of these 7 steps, and we will do, over the next coming weeks. But what I will say is that these are the foundations that you need, no matter what market you're in, no matter what sector you're in. You need to have these foundations in place to make your client attraction work. And if you haven't got them, or any that you've got that aren't working as well as you need them to, that's what you want to pay particular attention to. Right, so let's kick it off. So the first one is you need to have a specified market that you operate in. You need to have a well-defined niche, a well-defined audience who you are going to serve. So the reason this is important, I think a lot of people, a lot of recruiters, they try and cast the net far and wide. They try and sort of be all things to all people. And that could mean that you're trying to serve multiple sectors, or it could mean you're trying to fill multiple, different types of roles. But whatever it is, I think the more variance in your audience, if you like, the more things can go wrong. The less potent your marketing message is. So that the tighter you can get with the niche that you serve, the more powerful your marketing messages will be. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, there's a saying, the narrower your niche, the broader your appeal. And I talked earlier about, if I was to ask you, why would the client work with your hiring manager work with you rather than your competitors and anybody else? And one of them will be, by the way, your hiring manager wants to work with an expert. When you're engaging somebody, perhaps it's some building work or perhaps it's some medical work, you've got some challenges with your health. We all want to deal with the experts. And one of the beauties is if you can position yourself as the expert in your particular niche, you have less resistance to your fees. Because I'm sure some hiring managers will say, well, I can get this cheaper elsewhere. And you say, of course you can, but not from the experts. And I'm one of the leading players in this particular niche, be it IT or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So it helps you stand out from the crowd, gives you that authority. And I think the real important thing here is your clients are looking for experts. You ask any hiring manager, do you want to deal with anybody on this particular role, or do you want to deal with the leaders in this field? I guarantee every time the client's going to say, well, no, I want the best candidates and I want the best guy to do the job. So it's imperative that you position yourself as the expert and have a well-defined niche.
Yeah, and again, just on that, it's also critical that the market that you put yourself in, the market you decide to target, there's actually a demand for that. You want to make your marketing easier, more effective. So we recorded it's January 2021. We've just come out of 2020, which most of you know was a year where a lot of recruiters struggled. A lot of vacancies got put on hold. A lot of businesses went under. You want to make sure this year that you're focusing on roles that are critical to the business revenue or growth, right? They're the last roles to get cut. I think, what we saw last year was people focusing on roles where they were sort of nice to have. When it's nice to have, when it's not essential, they get cut. So you want to make sure that, one, you're clear on who your market is, but two, that it's in a market that actually is going to make money this year, or is going to make money in the years to come. And if it gets to the point where it's not going to make money or isn't making as much money, also be prepared to change. I think if you're not prepared to change, you're sort of relying on the market conditions to work in your favor. And as we saw last year, as we've seen throughout history, that isn't always the case. Also it's imperative that I think once you know who your market is, you want to expand your network of those people. So one of the mistakes a lot of recruiters make is that they might know who their market is, might know exactly what vacancies they want to work on, but they have a small network of clients, small network of prospects who they're communicating with on a regular basis, but they don't expand that network. When you don't expand that network, you're sort of relying on the ambitions of your network to grow. So if they're hiring, things are going really well, but when they're not, when things get put on hold, when they cut back, your business suffers, right? So again, we saw that last year, people relying on one or a few main clients. When those clients change direction or pull job orders or pull vacancies, then your business is directly impacted. The bigger you can have, the bigger reach you can have with your market, but also be very specific to who those people are, the more secure your client attraction will be. Is there any points to add on to that before we move on?
That particular one, we can move on. That covered that really well.
Perfect. The next thing that we need to get right is your messaging, right? And when we say messaging, this is, what message are you putting out into the marketplace? So if you're clear on who your market is, what problem is it that you help them solve, right? What is it that you fix for them? One of the mistakes people make here is that they spend all of their time and energy. If you look at, posts to put on LinkedIn, social media, wherever, even when they're speaking to clients, they're talking all about recruiting and recruitment. And although that's what you do, it's not the outcome that you provide. So what we want to get really clear on is, if you look at the candidates that you place, what impact do they have on the business? That really forms your message. And the more sort of specific we are with the niche, the more clear we can get on that. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I always use the scenario. Imagine that you're doing some DIY at home. You want to drill a quarter-inch hole in the wall, and you go and get the drill bit, but unfortunately you haven't got it. So you've got to go to a store to get the drill bit. Well, you go into the store. What you actually want is a hole in the wall rather than the drill bit. And if you could buy just a hole in the wall, you would. And the point I'm making is, as Drew rightly said, clients don't want what you do. They want the results of what you do. So if you're if you're an IT recruiter and you recruit, let's say, IT project managers, they want what that IT project manager will bring to the role. I sound rude now, but they don't actually care about the process that you go through to get it. And often recruiters talk about what they do rather than the end results. If you want your message to resonate with your hiring managers, talk about what it means to them, the hiring manager, and the impact it will have on them on a personal level and on the business as well, because now you're going to get their attention.
Terry, can you give us a few examples of what you mean there?
Yeah, so I mean, my background, full disclosure here, is IT recruitment. So I would recruit IT project managers, IT directors, and that sort of thing. So often, if I was talking to an IT director, he or she would be talking about wanting this IT project manager. One of the questions you should be asking is, what's the implications if you don't get the right IT project manager? Now, the IT director now starts talking about projects will not be delivered or will be behind or over budget, and the impact that has on the business. And that's the message you want to be communicating. If it's a sales role, I was doing some coaching with one of our clients earlier, and he's recruiting 2 salespeople, but these 2 salespeople, by the way, will add about 1.5 million in revenue to this business. 1.5 million in revenue to the business. So my client can talk about fees of 30%, because ultimately what matters is the revenue to the business rather than, quite frankly, the recruiter's fees. My client can talk about what these 2 salespeople will do for the business and how it will add to the bottom line and how it will give them that competitive edge and increase their market share. That's what the client wants, not the process that the recruiter or this headhunter is going to go through to find that candidate. That's all they care about. Does that make sense, Drew?
It makes perfect sense. And I think the more time you spend talking about the process, the more you commoditize what you do, the harder it is to get the fee you want. I mean, the example that we often like to use is that when you speak to a personal trainer or you go to the gym, you don't want, like, let's say you want to lose weight, right? And to lose weight, the process is going to involve you working out 5 times a week and eating chicken and broccoli, right? That isn't what you really want. That's not, that's the process, but it's not sexy. It's not really what you want. What you really want is you want to be more attractive to the opposite sex, or you want, you want to improve your marriage, or, you have to look at the outcome, right? So it's like a personal trainer selling you on chicken and broccoli versus more sex. You need to do the same in your business, right? If you look at the candidates you place, what outcome do they provide to your clients? When we're speaking, whether it's written copy in videos or face to face with your clients or over the phone, as it's probably going to be for the foreseeable, you need to talk about that outcome. You need to talk about the more sex, not the chicken and broccoli. That makes sense?
Yeah, so makes perfect sense. So in a nutshell, your clients want sex, not chicken and broccoli, when you're offering your services. I hope that kind of sums it up. But on a serious note, I hope you get the point. That ultimately, they want the end results, not the process itself.
Awesome. So then step 3. So once we're clear on who the market is, who it is we're going after, we're clear on what it is they want, the outcome that we provide. The next thing we need to get clear on is the media we use to reach those people. So when we say media, we're talking about 2 things. One, what platforms do you use? So that could be telephone, LinkedIn, Facebook, email, direct mail, webinars, whatever. What platforms do you use? And also, what strategies do we use on those platforms, right? I think one of there was discussion about this in the group the other day. I think Terry said, who still cold calls to win business? And, there was a mix. It wasn't sort of quite as, a few years ago, everyone only cold called it, but there's an evolution happening in recruitment where now the smart recruiters aren't just using the phone, they're mixing up the platforms they use. They're using the phone, they're using LinkedIn, they're using email, and they've got this sort of marketing mix going on. So when they call a prospect, it's not a cold call per se. I mean, it's cold. It might be cold as in you've never spoken to that prospect before, but it's not cold in the sense that that phone call isn't going to be the first communication they've had from you. So essentially, the more media you can use, the more you can create omnipresence, the more, you know, each prospect has heard from you on multiple different platforms multiple times, the easier it's going to be when you do speak with them to, you know, one, get them to listen to you and listen to what you have to say, but two, you know, move them through to the next stage of your sales process, right? So you need all these three things working in conjunction. Market, message, media. If any of one of those things is out of sync, like if you use a media that your market don't use, so if you're, for example, if your market aren't on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn's probably not going to be a media you want to use. If your message doesn't hit with that market, then again, it's going to break down. So we need to make sure these things are all in sync. And then when it comes to media, the more touches you can have with a prospect, the easier it's going to be to, you know, convince them to buy from you, or at least convince them to have a conversation, right? Which, you know, move them into your sales process, your sales conversation. And I think if you're still using, you know, 1 to 5 methods and haven't yet evolved to use multiple, then you're again, you're still winning business, but you're making it harder for yourself. The smart recruiters, the ones who we're seeing get the best results, the ones who we're seeing attract the right clients consistently as well, because that's the key. They're using multiple different medias, multiple different ways of communicating with their prospects. So they're building authority in the market, because it's not a case of that they just call a prospect out the blue and the prospect picks up the phone. It's the first time having a conversation. It's the first time that prospect even knew that they existed. You know, before they've even picked up the phone, before they've even had that conversation, before they had that phone call, that prospect has seen videos, has seen messages, has seen emails, whatever it happens to be. So the relationships in the early stages of being built rather than completely cold. So check in, does that make sense? Let me know in the comment box if it does. Give me a yes or no. So I think, you know, that's probably the one area that we see people making the most mistakes. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, what I'd also add to that is come into it with an open mind. Often you see posts on LinkedIn, or well, you see them everywhere about what's the best platform. Is LinkedIn better or Facebook? And a lot of recruiters actually believe that LinkedIn is the best platform for business. The fact is, more of your potential clients are actually on Facebook than on LinkedIn, and you know, a lot of our clients get most of their business actually from Facebook rather than LinkedIn. Now, I'm not saying that's what you've got to do. What I'm saying is, as Drew rightly said, you've got to be where your prospects are. Now, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's texting, whether it's the phone, whether it's Twitter, whether it's email, don't have these preconceived ideas of what you think is going to work best, because ultimately it doesn't matter what you think. I would strongly encourage you to test them all. Example, we know for sure that text messages are more likely to get opened than an email. That's a fact. But again, don't take our word for it. Worth you testing, because the fact is, a text message is more likely to get open than an email. So the point I'm making here, you've got to be open to the ideas rather than having any preconceived ideas as to what you think is going to work best, because ultimately it's not what you think is going to work best that matters. It's what the fact is going to work best. But going back to LinkedIn and Facebook, there are more of your users on Facebook than on LinkedIn. That's a fact. You know, just do the numbers on it, and you see that to be the case.
Yeah. So, you know, we've got 1, market, 2, message, 3, media. I think, you know, when you start to get these 3 things right, what you start doing, you build up an audience who, you know who you are. They're resonating with your message. You know, they've seen you about on all these different platforms, right? So the next thing you need is an irresistible offer. We need to get, you know, from that group of people, need a way for them to raise their hand and express an interest in what we do. Without step forward, without that, you end up trying to reach out to people at random, sort of relying on luck and hope that they have a vacancy, or that they will have a vacancy in the near future, right? So if we think about your market as in, you know, let's say that, and again, it's going to vary from sector to sector. Let's say that only 5% of them are ready to buy at any one time, and then we've got the other 95% who are future buyers, all right? 5% now buyers, then 95% future buyers. The bigger your market gets, it's going to be an impossibility for you to speak to 100% of them 100% of the time, right? So we need to be strategic about who we reach out to and at the right time, right? So if we can, identify that top 5% of now buyers before we pick up the phone, before we go meet them, whatever it is, if we can identify that top 5% of now buyers, that's who we need to focus on. That's who we need to spend our time and attention on. I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make is you can do the first 3 steps right. Know your market, have a good market, your message is perfect, the media, multiple platforms, the media is working, but you have no way of knowing who is a now buyer. So any of your sort of outreach, whether it's a telephone call, whether it's an email, whatever it happens to be, is random, right? We're just trying to hit all of these people at the same time, hoping that we get lucky and someone's gonna sort of come to the top, right? But it'll be a lot more productive if we can identify that top 5% first, and then just spend our time and energy on those people. In order to do that, you need what we call an irresistible offer, something that allows your prospects to raise their hand and express an interest in what you do. So there's a few ways that this can work, a few ways this can look for you. So first way is one, we can have them effectively raise their hand by a behavior. They do something, or they behave in a certain way that we know that the next step is, or that we know that they're in them, they're going to be hiring in the near future. The second way is that you simply ask them, and they tell you they're going to be hiring in the near future. There's 2 approaches to go by, right? Let's look at the first one first, right? Behavior. So that can work in a lot of ways. So one, it could be behavior that isn't triggered by you. It could be behavior. So for example, if you know that when someone starts in a particular role, that one of the first things they do is build out a team, that's behavior. We know that they're going to be hiring in the near future. Another way is if you know that, if a particular company gets investment, they're going to be hiring in the near future. Again, that's behavior based. Ways we can manufacture that is if we have, what we call client magnets that we can offer that gets them to raise their hand and express an interest in what we do. So for example, I'm going to give examples from our business, and I'll give a few examples from my clients as well. If we do a live stream, for example, and we call it 7 steps to building an unbreakable client attraction machine, we know that anyone who's interested in that is interested in marketing for their recruitment business, right? So the behavior has told us that they could be interested in that product or service in the near future. For you, if you had a video, an ebook, PDF, whatever, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what form it's in, but if you had a tool that said, 10 things to do before you make the next hire, or 10 questions to ask if you're thinking of hiring in the next 90 days, right? We know that anyone who is interested in that information is probably going to be hiring in the next 90 days, right? So we're manufacturing that behavior. Terry, does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. It reminds me about 4 or 5 years ago, going away on holiday, going to the States and just doing some research. I went to numerous websites, but one website had this. It was a car hire company, and they had a report. It was called the 7 essential questions to ask before you hire your car in the States. And of course, I was going to the States. I was going to be hiring a car, and I got a report. So that company, if you think about the logic of that, I went to numerous websites making inquiries about hiring a car and about hotels and whatever. But this one organization were able to identify that clearly I was thinking about hiring a car because I requested that report. And that's what it's about. As Drew rightly said, if you've got a list of 1,000 potential clients, and there's 2 types of buyers, isn't there? There's the now buyers and the sometime buyers. So they're going to engage with you sometime in the future, but probably not in the next 90 days. But you're only looking for those 5% or so that are looking to engage you in the next 90 days. And you can waste a lot of time. So let's say you were cold calling. You then think, I'll cold call those 1,000 people to find the 50 that are now buyers. Well, that's going to take you a lot of time to get through to all those people. But if you could do something such as an irresistible offer that simply identifies what we call the now buyers, because that's all you want to be talking to. You only want to be talking to the now buyers that are going to engage a recruiter or a search firm in the next 60 to 90 days. The other 950, quite frankly, right now, you couldn't care less. They're of no interest to you whatsoever. It's just that small percentage. And that's what it's about. So as Drew said, be it funding. Another example is, certainly when I was doing recruitment in IT, it was about when you heard of projects that they were about to implement, you knew that sometime in the future they're going to need certain skill sets to fulfill on those projects. It was a great time for us to reach out to hiring managers, because the announcement of doing those projects meant they're going to need certain skill sets. So we would always look for that. And Drew gave the other great example. We've got a client who works within fintech, and he simply looks for those organizations that have just had funding, because they're the guys that are looking to build a team. And that's where you spend your effort, with those guys, the now buyers, who are likely to engage with somebody such as you in the next 60 to 90 days.
Yeah, so we looked at, behavior based. We looked at, manufactured behavior, where you've caused that behavior, or you've triggered that behavior. They're the two ways where it's sort of, it's they're telling you by their behavior. And the other way is that they can simply tell you by telling you, right? So you ask a question and they tell you, but you need to ask the right questions, right? So again, to give you an example of this, we worked with a client last year who doubled his profits in 2020. The case study is available in the group. But one of the key things, in that case study that he did, got clear on his market, got clear on what his message was. So all of his content was designed to build authority with that market. Got clear on the media that he was going to use, and he used a lot of media. But one of his main ones was LinkedIn, and the irresistible offer he had was just a simple question, right? So he would finding prospects, build authority with them with his content, then choose his media, and then he would simply go out and ask them, hey, look, if X wanted to join the team, could you make space for them? So for example, like if I was a rec to rec, speaking to you, I would say like, hey, if one of the top performing consultants with a proven track record of adding 500K to your bottom line wanting to join your team, could you make space for them, right? It's a no-brainer, yes, right? For a lot of recruiters anyway. So it might not be for you specifically, but a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, I'd have a conversation. So that's all he did. He said, look, if we could find X, would you be willing to have a conversation? That was his irresistible offer, simple as that. So now for lots of people, like I think he's doing 30 people a day, and he's getting lots and lots of people say yes. He would then put them into the call, but that was his irresistible offer, right? So we've got, it can be a question, or they tell you like verbally, or it can be written. Behavior that's done off their own back, or behavior that's manufactured by you, but that's how you form an irresistible offer. So look at your marketing at the moment. Do you have an irresistible offer? Do you have a way of identifying who is hiring now or in the near future? And ideally, so again, just sort of a shift on this from what a lot of people talk about or teach. We don't want to find people that are hiring now. We want to find people that are about to hire. So I think if they're already hiring, we significantly reduce the chances of getting a retainer or an exclusive, right? Because they've probably got other recruiters who have reached out to them and we're too late to the party. What we want is you want to be there and be speaking to them before they announce it to the world that they're hiring, right? So you want to form that relationship early doors. So does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And on that point about if they're hiring now, quite frankly, it's none of your business if they're hiring now, added to which your competitors have got an edge over you because they've probably had that job order for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So you jumping on saying, yeah, give me that job order. I'll let me waste my time on that because the other guys have got a head start on me. It's kind of pointless. And if the client says, well, actually, we're looking for a blah, blah now, say, hey, listen, that's great. I hope it goes well for you. But let's talk about what you're going to need in the future. Because that's when you're going to get roles exclusively. That's when you're going to get roles on the retained basis. Because you've got a head start over your competitors. And you can see how what we're sharing with you now gives you that head start, because you're constantly talking to what we call the now buyers that are going to engage a recruiter in the next 60 days or so. And that's who you want to be talking to all the time.
Perfect. That brings us on to the next step, which is number 5, which is lead capture. So, once we've who our market is, we've got our message, we've got the media, we've got the irresistible offer, we've got these people who have now raised their hand and expressed an interest in what we do. And they need a way of just simply capturing that information, right? So the first, I guess, like the most sort of critical parts of this are step 1, 2, 3, and 4. lead capture is pretty simple, right? We just need to extract their details so we can follow up with them. So that could look like a web form on your website, or it could just simply look like, you know, I'm going to take their business card, or it could simply look like I'm going to put them into my CRM. Like, whatever it is, we need to capture that information so we know to follow up with them. That's step 5. And then step 6 is your short-term follow-up, right? So your sort of primary goal is, you know, the role of marketing is to move people into your sales process. Right, that's the only role of marketing, to move people into a sales process. So if you're a recruitment or search business owner and you sell your services in the traditional way, that sales service is going to, that sales process is going to look like a meeting of some sort, either on Zoom, over the phone, and you know, face to face. Maybe not so much now, but you know, before face to face, right? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people who know who we are, have a need for what we do, and have a face-to-face meeting with them so we can pitch our services or talk about our offer, find out more about what they need, and see if it's a fit, right? So that brings us to step 6, which is short-term follow-up. So once we've got these people who have expressed an interest in what we do, the next thing is about, you know, how are we going to get them into your calendar so you can have a meeting with them? For a lot of our clients, it's only at this stage that they even pick up the phone to call somebody. So a lot of our clients, again, I'm not sort of poo-pooing cold calling it, you know, it definitely works, but one of our big things has always been about optimization. So if you're an owner of the business, one of your scarce resources is time, right? The more you grow, the busier you are, the less time you've got. So if you want to continue that growth, you need to optimize where you're spending the time, right? So it's better for you to speak to people who, at the point where they know who you are and have a need for what you do, they've already told you they have a need for what you do, versus calling them on the hope that they might, right? It's just a better use of time. So for a lot of our clients, they only really pick up the phone once they know that the person has a need for what they do and they're willing to take the call, right? So again, that's where the short-term follow-up comes in. What are you doing to get someone from having a need to getting them into your calendar so you can have a sales meeting with them? And again, we want to be doing it before they start hiring so we can get that exclusive or get that retained agreement. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, there are 4 main reasons why a hiring manager will not engage you. They don't have a need. So remember, we talked about you've got to find the hiring managers have got a future need. They don't know who you are. And if you want to get a retainer up front, asking a complete stranger for a retainer up front is a big ask. So that's why a lot of contingency recruiters get contingency work, because from the hiring manager's point of view, it's like, yeah, sure, you can have a job board along with everybody else. So they've got to know you. They've then got to like you, and they've then got to trust you. And this process that we're taking you through, where you have that irresistible offer that solves their problem, you capture their details, and you've got this short-term follow-up and then long-term follow-up, ensures that all those boxes get ticked, because you only identify those hiring managers that have a need. They get to know you, like you, and trust you within that process. So when you pick up the phone, when you call them, a lot of those boxes have been ticked, and it makes the whole process easier. So much so that what you'll find is when you've got this in place, that hiring managers are more likely to want to buy from you more than you actually want to sell to them, which is a great position to be in, because they have a need, they know what you do, they know you, they like you, and they trust you, and they're ready to pull the trigger and engage you because of that relationship. It is so much easier than, you know, the old methods, such as, you know, cold calling a complete stranger and asking to spend thousands with you. It's what somebody said to me, you know, it's a bit like a plumber giving you a call saying, I'm just cold calling you to see if you've got any leaky taps. It's like, well, you know, you want to call the plumber when you've got a problem. You don't want to hear from the plumber until that time. It's very much the same for hiring managers and recruiters.
Awesome. And then that brings on to step 7, which is simply long-term follow-up, right? So sometimes you're unable to get people into your sales process straight away. So we need to make sure that we follow up with them and continue that relationship, right? So again, just to sort of recap, go through them again. We've got market, you know, identifying the right people, message, what outcome do they want, media, what platforms, what strategies are using to reach those people. For irresistible offer, how we get them to raise their hand and express an interest in what you do. 5, lead capture. 6, short-term follow-up. 7, long-term follow-up, right? And all we want to do is we want to feed people in at the top end of the funnel. So, every single day, every single week, every single month, your day needs to be filled. So either if it's you doing it or someone in your business, doesn't really matter, but your day needs to be filled with different ways of expanding the people in your market, expanding the people in your reach. If you look at your current network right now, the current people who know you exist, if you're not growing that each and every day, then you're never going to develop the opportunities that you want. What will happen is if they're hiring, things look really good, but when they're not, things look really bad, and you get this sort of yo-yo up and down, feast and famine revenue. The more you can grow that, the less, I guess, susceptible you are to dips in the market. So, the market's going to change, and all types of things. Sometimes there's a bigger demand for your services than others. If you just got your network and you're relying on that, you really see the impact of that demand, right? Because when it's buoyant and there's lots of demand for your services, then all of your network are reaching out to you and you've got lots of opportunities. When it's not, that dwindles, right? But if you're continuously growing your network, continuously growing that market, continuously growing the number of people who know about you, know that you exist, view you as an authority, we're less susceptible to that. Because what happens is, let's say that in next month the demand for the services in your particular sector drops by 5%. Well, let's imagine it's dropped by 5%, but in that same month you've grown your network by 10%. Right, you've grown your network by 10%, so you won't actually notice a drop off, right? Because your business will still grow. It's when you don't grow your network that you notice that drop off. So to check in, does that make sense? Terry?
Sorry, Drew. I thought you were talking to the audience. Yes, it makes sense to me. My apologies. I thought you were talking to the other guys on Facebook. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So yeah, you want to make sure that you've got that right. Again, the message needs to be powerful, needs to be potent, needs to cut through the noise. What media are you using? So if you're only using sort of 3 or 5 platforms at the moment, expand your platforms, and also get better with how you use them as well. I think nowadays a lot of recruiters are on different platforms, but when you look at the email sending out, they're not getting a very good response. Look at their LinkedIn activity, they're not getting a good response there as well. You need to optimize as you go as well. Irresistible offer, lead capture, short-term follow-up, long-term follow-up. So anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, and what we're sharing with you is really, I'm sure it makes sense. And if you're thinking, but I'm not sure how to apply it, I think it's quite understandable. So, and we want to help you in any way. So if you're an owner, if you're a director of a business, if you're looking to grow your business, if you want to just be talking to those now buyers who are in the market for what you do right now, if you go to makemoreplacements.com/call, book a call with one of our team. It's a very quick call, 15-minute call. We'll ask you a few questions, and if it's right, we'll take it from there. But we'll certainly get some information to you. So the only criteria, you have to be an owner, you have to be a director of the business, and you must be looking to grow your business. If you're not looking to grow your business, there's really no point. So if you're looking to do that, go to makemoreplacements.com/call and book a 10-minute call with one of our team, and we'll just brainstorm a few ideas. And we'll either get another call with you or we'll send you some information, but we'll certainly make it worth your while. It's how you can implement this so that you get this absolutely right. So you're deciding who you work with. You're deciding on the market. And we'll help you with the message, with the media, with the irresistible offer. So you're identifying those hiring managers who are looking to engage a recruiter right now, how to capture their details, and then how to follow up both short-term and long-term. So ultimately, you're going to decide who you're working with rather than the other way around. And clients will be coming to you wanting to engage with you.
Yeah, so I mean, today, look, we've just gone through the fundamentals, the very basic fundamentals of what it will look like. For the specifics of how it works in your business, depending on what sector you're in, depending on what market you're in, it's going to look very different, right? It's going to be different variables depending on where you operate and who your market is. If you want to get some clarity on that, go to makemoreplacements.com/call. speak to one of our specialists to help you get some clarity on, you know, what typically is going to work for you in each of those 7 steps. Help you build out a plan to drive your business forward. It won't be a sales call, it'll be literally 15 minutes. There'll be no pitch on the call, but it's definitely help you get some clarity on where you're going moving forward. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to go from contingency to exclusive or retained. We're going to talk about how you can make that shift in your business model. So if you're either, you know, like a contingency recruiter right now and you want to move more to that model, or perhaps you do some retained at the moment, but you want to get more, yeah, join that call. We'll put in the post in the group, let you know what time and day that will be, probably later next week as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed, Drew. Thank you guys for joining us today. So same time next week, we'll put on that live training of how to win more retained work, so you get paid for the work that you do. So if you're looking to get paid always for the work that you do, join us next week at the same time. Until then, folks, take care, take action, and be relentless. Thanks a lot. Bye.